This is Office Talk with Annette Stepanian. Hey everyone, we're here with another episode of Office Talk. In today's episode, I'm giving you guys a double whammy. We're going to be talking all about DBAs. In particular, there are two questions that come up from folks about DBAs. The first is, what are they and do I even need them? And the second one is, what do you do if you want to have one business entity with multiple lines of business? But before we get started, we do have to do this disclaimer that we do all the time. This presentation is for informational and educational purposes only. It does not constitute legal advice and does not form an attorney-client relationship between me and you. If you have any specific questions about the law or your specific circumstances, talk to a lawyer authorized to practice law in your jurisdiction. So here's the first question. What is a DBA and do I need one for my business? Basically, anytime you do business with a name other than your legal business name, you need to get a DBA filed. So for example, let's say Sally Smart is operating as a sole proprietor, and she opens a studio which she calls Bliss Photography. In this case, Sally needs to file a fictitious business name application because she is operating her business under a name that is different than her business legal name, which is Sally Smart. Or let's say Sally Smart registers her LLC as Bliss Photography and Video. She opens a studio which she calls Bliss Photography. Again, she needs to file a fictitious business name application because her legal business name is Bliss Photography and Video, the name she used to register her LLC. Yet she's going out into the world and putting her business out there as Bliss Photography. So why do you need a DBA? Well, it may be required by your state, and really the purpose is to put the public and the government on notice as to who is the person or entity behind this name so they can assign any activity back to the owner. You might also need it if you're a sole proprietor or partnership and you want to open a bank account under a business name. Also, if you want to have multiple lines of business that you want to keep under one umbrella, let's say like an LLC, then you might need to file a DBA. So as to the last point, a common question that often comes up is something like this. My husband runs a videography business and I run a photography business. Is there a way we can operate our separate businesses under a single LLC? The short answer is yes, but there are a few things I want you to consider before filing multiple DBAs under a single business entity like an LLC, for example. The first is, what is the impact on your accounting and bookkeeping? Although there's no reason you couldn't open two DBAs under a single business entity, doing so might present an accounting and bookkeeping headache because you now have two sets of books you need to keep up with. Also, keep in mind that although you have two DBAs, in the eyes of the IRS, you're still operating a single venture, which means that it may make it difficult to claim losses from one DBA if the other DBA is showing a profit. Second, what is the potential risk for liability in each line of business? The more similar the line of business each DBA is in, the more likely it is that the types of risks are the same. So as in our example, since the photography and videography businesses fall under a very similar category, it might make sense for you to have it under a single umbrella entity. In contrast, if one person was running a photography business and the other was running a food-based business, the two businesses would not be close enough to justify it. Any liability incurred by one DBA will then be imputed to the other DBA in light of the fact that they are functioning under an umbrella entity. And finally, will I want to sell one of the ventures in the future? Although you're operating multiple DBAs under a single umbrella entity, remember that the DBAs are not separate transferable entities. You may be able to sell the entire umbrella entity, such as the LLC, but not the individual DBA business. So how do you file a DBA? Just to be clear, the name of the application varies by state. Some of them call it a fictitious business name application, others an assumed name application, or a doing business as application. But essentially, what you need to do is contact the county in which you operate your business, and you'll find instructions on filing an application and what kind of application fee you need to pay. It's usually pretty straightforward and usually pretty inexpensive. But what most people miss is complying with any publication requirement. So sometimes some counties will require that you publish a notice in a local newspaper for a period of time, so let's say for 4 weeks or so, basically notifying the public that you are now operating your business under this fictitious business name. And then once that 4 weeks is over, let's say, then you're required to notify the county and provide a certification that you have complied with this publication requirement. So that's it for DBAs. If you have additional questions about DBAs, or if you'd like to ask a question about law or business that you'd like me to address in a future office talk, submit your question over at AnnetteStepanian.com/Q&A. Looking for more resources? Well, make sure to stop by my website over at AnnetteStepanian.com. There you'll find contract templates for your creative business, free legal webinars, upcoming courses, and loads of other goodness to help get your legal groove on. And while you're there, sign up for my free weekly newsletter where I share my best tips for laying the legal foundation for your business.